we'll go straight to Martin. Is that okay with you, Martin? Are you ready for us now?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
It's bath time with the kids, so I warn you might see some naked kids behind me jumping around in a minute.
That's probably a good job you're going first then, in case you need to head off.
No.
So just to introduce Martin then. So Martin is from Nuom and began his career 15 years ago in development and founded Digital AD Roller in 2009, which rebranded last year to Nuom. Have I said that right, Martin? Just to
That's right.
Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. Now you've got a team of 20 in Nottingham, and that's when you rebranded to Nuom. Martin's focus is digital product design and creation, working with large organisations and scale-ups by creating digital experiences through understanding human behaviour. So I wanted to invite Martin along to discuss his story, because we recently connected and he told me how really COVID-19 has affected his business from then to now, and about in particular the operations side. So Martin, yeah, please do tell us a bit about your day-to-day life in the business, how it was before lockdown as in comparison to how it is now.
So my day-to-day was, I was a lot more on the outside and letting my team run as much as possible. My business has been going for over 10 years now, and I've kind of gradually taken a step back, because tried to take a step back, but not really thought big ahead, so infrastructure, etc. And I think one of the things that we've found is that the impact in terms of, I think it just basically highlighted a lot of stuff that we kind of swept under the rug, in terms of, we know there's a problem there, but we don't really want to think about it at the moment because business is coming through. And it kind of just highlighted a few of the areas in terms of the business that just wasn't working. Even though we've gone through a rebranding exercise, I think as a business, for the last 2 years, we've gone on a journey in terms of trying to find who we are. So we tried to say, okay, we need a culture, because all businesses need a culture, but we tried to force a culture in a way and not really found what we are. And the reason we did rebrand was to do that. And we have been able to identify that, but the journey, this kind of was a hard reset in terms of, right, the decisions that you need to make, that you're kind of throwing and kicking down the road, they need to be made now, and that for me has been where I've now suddenly come straight back into the business on a day-to-day, really in with working with the clients, and I've started to see things that I just kind of identified as would have been massive issues, and I mean catastrophic issues. I think it's bad now, but they would have been even worse further down the road. So in a way it's been good, because I've it's not been good, like obviously the situation, but I was kind of prepared for it. And that doesn't mean that I knew COVID was going to happen, but I was mentally prepared. I'm very risk averse, so I always look at analysing what are the risks that can occur. And one was, you're going to lose 80% of your business instantly overnight. So mentally I was kind of prepared. And I think the government, because I was mentally prepared for what I had to do, it was a bit of black and white, right? This needs to happen. These people need to go. And what actually happened was the government schemes that they've done, the furlough schemes, for example, it's kind of minimized that impact. So now looking at it, it doesn't seem as bad as I thought it was when it first happened. And I think the scheme like that's been really good for us, because we would have had to get rid of a lot of people, and actually a lot of people that have gone on furlough, they're now back off furlough after a month. So yeah, it's been good in a way, because working from home, we have a remote working anyway. We've always had that opportunity for the team to do that. So we were already set up for that. The big problem's been that we have 3,500 square foot of a nice old lace factory office that is unused, and it was the dream to have that, because Matt will know, everyone, that's kind of the agency owner's dream, is you want to have this big fancy office where clients come in. Clients can't come in anymore. You can't run workshops, or you can run workshops, but it's different. And actually what it's identified to me is that you don't need all that space. It's a bit of a waste of space, to be honest. And I think we're going through, I know everyone's thinking about everyone's going to be working from home, but I've been speaking to a lot of my staff recently, and a lot of them want they like the balance. They like the opportunity to work from home, but they like the opportunity to come into a space. So it's interesting at the moment. It's changing on a weekly basis, to be honest. It's an interesting time, but I'm really positive. I'm a positive person anyway. I'm a family man, so I've enjoyed the time spending with the kids. It's time that I probably wouldn't have got, opportunity in terms of.
It's one of the questions I was going to ask you, actually, Martin, about how that's affected you personally as well. Everything that you've just said with you as a person and your work-life balance, and how that's made you feel, and reprioritise essentially. Yeah.
If I'm being brutally honest, I feel like I'm working more, but then I feel like I'm working less. It's a bit of a weird. I feel like I'm doing a lot more tasks that I enjoy, I guess, because I'm getting back involved in the work in the day to day. The business grew from the basis of me being in the core part of it, and to grow a business, you need to step out of it if you want to obviously sell it. So I was at that happy medium of whether I want to build a business that I can sell for X amount, and I need to step out of it, or whether I want to run it as a lifestyle agency. And I thought I wanted one thing, and I've kind of flipped into the other thing. And it's kind of like, at the moment, it's a lifestyle balance for me. And it's always been a lifestyle balance. My kids are really young. So one's 5 and the other one's 2. So they're not at an age where, obviously they can look after themselves. So, and my wife's a teacher and she's been off as well. So it's been nice. I feel it's been all right for me because I can go into the office. So I have been going into the office, like I went in today. I've actually set up a gym there as well because I needed to feel like the one thing I have missed is the ability to go to a gym and just forget about everything and just, work out basically. And it's not the same when you're trying to do it at home. When you're watching Joe Wicks on the telly, it's just not the same. So I set up a gym at work. So I've kind of, mentally for me, I've got a routine. So it's been okay for me in terms of that. But business-wise, we are a lot leaner operation. We naturally had people that were leaving anyway, so we haven't really replaced them. So we've actually become a lot leaner, which has been really good. And every role I've looked at, the one thing about this is it's kind of given me the time to look at everything from a efficient perspective. What's the return on investment on roles? It's highlighted, like I said, key areas which weren't working, and I kind of was just ignoring them and kicking them down the road because I didn't want to sort of face the reality that they wasn't working. So
we've been pushed to make a decision on things now, haven't we all? And maybe pushing yourselves out of your comfort zone a little bit, would you say, to actually make some big decisions?
Yeah, I think I get quite involved in every member of my team. I get really involved with them. So when they start, I'm very goal orientated. So I'll sit down with them and identify their short, midterm and long-term goals. And I'll be honest with them, I want to know if you want to be at Capital One or you want to be at Google or whatever, let me help you while you're here, get on that journey to get you where I need to go, because I need to understand. So I have a quite close relationship with a lot of the team. So it's hard sometimes to, if they are not performing, I guess, from a business perspective, if someone else has come in, they'll be quite ruthless and say, right, that's it, you've got to go, it's got to go. But a lot of people have got it a lot worse. I think that's the thing. And I'm in a business and a sector that you can work, it didn't really get affected client-wise. We had a couple of stuff that was paused. That was about it, really. And then we had, so we're doing a lot of stuff in pharmaceuticals as well. So we develop applications, and we do a lot of user-centered design and research in the pharma space. So we're working on a couple of COVID-based applications at the moment. And then we're also working at getting volunteers into the NHS. So we're developing a platform. So we kind of came in a right space, to be honest, and as well. So even though stuff was turned off in construction and other sectors, because we spread ourselves over a number of sectors and industries, it wasn't as impactful. So
you're essentially using your skills and the platforms that you've got in your industry to adapt the products, really, aren't you? From one product to another, moving with the current times and the situation, which is temporary, but that's your adaptation story right there, really, isn't it?
Yes, it's so one of the big things, we've gone from very dev heavy to over the last 2 years to very design focus and looking at user centered. I'm from a digital product agency essentially. And one of the big things is we want to run design sprints and we want to do workshops. And actually what we found now is that the remote ones are really productive. There's really good tools out there that allow you to do that. And, you know, we can actually realize that we can go and work with start-up businesses and scale-up businesses in London and not have to rent out big spaces or worry about them having to come up to Nottingham. And it's actually opened our eyes to other opportunities, really.
Fantastic.
Really good.
For sure. Do you mind if I segue in here? Yeah, very similar to that, Martin. Like, I found that there's more global opportunities now. I run workshops all the time. It's my thing. And I've, over the last like 2 months, 3 months, I've worked in Dubai, I've worked in California, I've worked in New York, and just before I came on here, I was working in Sweden. How weird is that, right? And I've got UK clients as well. But that would never have been a thing, right, before COVID. Well, maybe a little bit, but not really as amplified as that. So for sure, the opportunities are there when you look for it.
Yeah. I wouldn't, if I'll be honest, I wouldn't have the bottle to even approach it to start with. And now I am, and, you know, I'm speaking to companies in France and, you know, in terms of startups to scale up, because we can run, you know, quick remote workshops with them. But what's the overhead? There isn't. It's literally just your time.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's opened up the world opportunity, really, which once again, it's kind of like head in the sand. I don't want to do it. I think that's 2-3 years down the line, you know, the West Coast of America. It isn't. You just gotta stay up a little bit later.
Yeah, that is the challenge. Yeah. I've got a question that's come in from the chat. Do you mind if I ask that now, Fiona? Is that a good time?
Yeah, you want to step ahead? That's good.
So, Mr. Magic, I'm sorry, Mr. Magic, I don't know your real name, but Mr. Magic has said, and I want your thoughts, Martin, on this question. Is it hard getting the right balance with productivity from staff working at home? Workload has reduced during COVID. What happens when you do start to get more busy? I assume there's a couple of assumptions based on that question, but what are your thoughts on getting staff motivated from home? How have you found that?
So productivity-wise, I haven't noticed anything. They're busy, so they are busy. Productivity-wise, I've not really noticed the dip, to be honest. The problem I have found is that one-to-one. So I'm at the moment, this week and next week, I'm having one-to-ones with all the teams at the moment. It's the first time I've done that, and my team's quite younger than me, and their lives, they haven't got kids, for example, and their position in life slightly different to where I am. So I'm a little bit disconnected from them anyway in that kind of way, in the environment. But the one thing I have is there's been this barrier for me to actually contact them. I think that if I'm trying to get out, is that one-to-one where I could just go to the table and have a chat with them or a cup of tea or something like that. That's the thing I've missed, those little moments, I guess, because doing it online, you're kind of forcing it, and it feels forced as well. Yeah, that's the one thing I have struggled. Productivity wise, they've been fine. If anything, some of them have been more productive. But yeah, it's the interactions, those little moments, I think, that I've missed.
Okay, well, we're about there, but I'm just going to finish off one last question, which is a kind of looking forward. What are your next steps, Martin?
Sorry, I didn't catch that, Fiona.
Next steps going forward for you?
Next steps for me is the office is closed until, I've already said, until sort of July, maybe August time. I'm going to use our office. So I've got a lot of space and I've got half the team that I had. So my big thing is health and well-being. It's something I've been trying to push. I think fitness is good for mentality. Obviously, infection and disease, it helps you fight. I've tried to implement that in terms of the culture and the environment, and it has worked. But what I'm going to do is I want to create a hub. So the office is open 3 days, 4 days a week, 2 days a week you work from home. The office is always going to be closed. And the office will be a hub. So split it in half and having a sort of health and well-being area. What fits in that, I don't know. It might be some equipment. It might be some yoga mat. I don't know, but I've got to figure that out. But I want it to be a place where it's not a stressful place. Is your work areas here. If you want to go and chill out and do something else, that space is there. If you want to come in and out, that's fine. But that's kind of where I'm moving to. It's my lifestyle. It fits my outlook. And I think that's where I kind of move into towards the business. Slowly, but that's the way it will happen.
And that's actually genuinely come from off the back of COVID-19 and the lockdown and all the mental health that we've had to, you know, really had to look out for ourselves and that. So would you say that that's come off the back of that?
Yeah, massively. Yeah, 100%.
So that's inspired you. It's so interesting. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Martin.
No worries.
And I could literally talk to you for a lot longer, but we've got to stop it there. But what we're going to do is, if we've got to have a few minutes, Matt, to go to anybody else who might. We've got time for one question. If anybody's got one and wants to actually unmute and ask it.
Yeah.
There is anybody.
I can't see anyone who's put a particular question. I mean, Andy Churchill sort of mentioned that he kind of hates the situation right now and prefers the buzz in the office. I guess the question to you, Martin, is like, how much have you missed? You know, you mentioned the little moments, but you know, do you miss that buzz? Because agency life is all about like the buzz, the beanbags, the shooting pool, the loud music. That's what we kind of usually thrive on. And obviously that's not a thing now. So how have you coped with that?
Do you know what? I generally haven't had time to think about that. But in terms of, I've just been so busy and occupied with the kids and the work that I haven't really thought about that, to be honest, in terms of the buzz. But yeah, I mean, I miss, like I said, it's those moments. It's taking the mick out of somebody because
office banter.
Office banter, yeah. I've really missed going for a beer with them. You know, I think obviously everyone's missed going to the pub, but I think those are the times when you get a little bit of the barriers come down and you can have that one-to-one. So that's I have missed that bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you fancy insulting someone from time to time, you can always message me, mate. Like I'm available for insults. Keep them coming, people.
Maybe you should all set up a agency Zoom once a month and just all have a bit of banter between you online.
Well, we just sit on there and just take the mick out of each other.
Yeah, basically.
Best insult wins.
Oh, well, thank you for that, Martin.